So again, thank you for attending. As Eric mentioned, I am a resident here of Little Tokyo. I'm actually a resident of one of their affordable housing developments, Kasahewa, and have been for almost 4 years. So I'm happy to be sharing my journey through the lived experience of homelessness. So several years ago, in 2008 and 2009, I worked as a merchandise coordinator in the fashion industry. And I worked for a relatively small retail boutique company here in downtown Los Angeles, right there next door to the pantry. And I worked for the company for 8 years. And during my time, while working there in 08, 09, we had the housing crisis. And as some people remember, the economic meltdown. And one of the major industries that was impacted, of course, was the retail industry. Most people weren't able to afford to buy, clothes or have extra money. So many people weren't spending. And so our company wasn't immune to the crisis. We shut down as many other companies did during that time and filed for bankruptcy. And I was actually one of the last skeleton, I was the skeleton crew of the company. And I remember it being a very, very scary time for all of us and having to reassess what I was going to do. And so, of course, I did what everybody else did. I applied for unemployment and I looked for work. And I remember at the time I didn't have a bachelor's, I had a high school diploma, and it was an employer's market. So it was very, very competitive to find just basic administrative work. And I wasn't making any leeway. So I was working a lot of odd end jobs. I am also and was at the time raising my son. And he was a preteen at the time. And I was struggling to make the rent and working all of these odd end jobs, from janitorial work to working special events venues, to being a card stalker for American Greetings and collecting unemployment so I could supplement my income. Now, during that time, I lived in this what is similar to what you see pictured here, which was a converted unit. So it was a garage converted into a studio. And so, this type of structure isn't uncommon. It's pretty commonplace in LA, but at the time, many, many years ago, it wasn't, I guess you could say, considered legitimate. And so I had lived there actually for 11 years in mid-city Los Angeles, right off of La Brea and Olympic. It was a great neighborhood. It was surrounded by a lot of single family homes. And in 2011, my landlord was cited for not having a legal zoning permit to rent the unit, which I wasn't aware of. But nevertheless, they sent him a letter and told my landlord that he had 3 weeks to vacate the unit, or he was going to be penalized. And so I only had 3 weeks. And so, of course, I scrambled and I was scared. And I remember reaching out. First of all, I called 211 for resources. And of course, 211 is a resource to find out what's out there. However, when I called, what my options were basically living in a shelter. And so I knew that was going to be a last resort. So I reached out to my network of people, primarily my social support network, which was my church, and did a blast email and reached out to my pastor for some type of assistance. And really the people that really came through were the single mothers in that church. And I had a good friend who's a single mother, and she decided to help me and take me in with her son in a 2-bedroom apartment. And I moved in with her and her son in the Valley for several months. And during my time there, in March of 2012, my dad died unexpectedly. And so that kind of pushed everything back for me as I was trying to rebuild, because there weren't any resources and finances to bury my dad. So I had to figure out with my brother how to bury him for a month. And so I was gone for a month, and then I came back and was just getting back into the rhythm of life. And then my friend just, you know, we sat down and she said it was just too much for all of us living together. And so I understood and I didn't take it personal. So I knew that I was back to square one and I had to find another place to live. And so again, I reached out to my network of people, and being who I am, I'm always trying to think 3 steps ahead. So I tried to make sure that I had a place to sleep at night with my son, and we weren't sleeping in our car. So I actually just showed up at the mission one day during the summer, Union Rescue Mission, because I wanted to secure a bed. So I sat there, I remember, for a couple of hours in the waiting room, waiting to see a case manager with my son. And I remember the fear and desperation in my son's eyes. So as a parent, I felt that was a rock bottom moment for me. It was a low point because at that point in time, I felt that somehow I failed as a parent. But I then I sat down, saw the case manager, and she explained to me that it wasn't like where you could secure a bed in advance. It was where if you were in a position where you had no place to sleep, then you come and you do intake. So that was explained to me. So then I left, and thankfully another friend reached out to me and told me to try to apply for the Dream Center. And the Dream Center is a faith-based nonprofit in Echo Park. This is their building. It's located right off the 101 freeway, and it inhabits the Old Queen of Angels Hospital. And I called them and eventually was able to get an appointment to interview to try to be a part of the program. I interviewed with one of their volunteer case managers and was able to get in. And you know, it's not easy to get into the Dream Center. There's an extensive waiting list. They're set up in terms of shelter is private rooms. So it's not the typical communal kind of like everyone living in or staying and sleeping in one room with bunk beds. It is private rooms, especially for those that are on the family floor. And so I did get in and did intake and lived there from 2012, actually all the way up until 2018. However, I was a program recipient from 2012 to 2015. I was going to college at the time and then transferred from LA City College to Azusa Pacific University. I worked part-time at a brokerage firm while raising my son. And then I decided that I am doing all of the prerequisites to be a part of the program at the Dream Center. I did a lot of outreach work. It inspired me and motivated me to want to help people. So I wanted to get into the nonprofit sector. And I wanted to transition from private to nonprofit. It was tough. I didn't have any experience, so and wasn't making any leeway. So the Dream Center had a position open in their development department, and I interviewed and got the job. And so I kind of worked different hats at the DC, from corporate relations to development to media and marketing, shortly before I left. So during my time there, I did try to find affordable housing. And so there wasn't any housing navigators at the DC. So you were sort of left to your own devices to research and find your own housing. So I researched on my own all the different affordable housing developments in the city of Los Angeles. And I applied to a lot of them. And I remembered applying to Casa Hewa back in 2015. And there was a waiting list, as many of them have, right? And there's a scarcity of affordable housing in the city. And so I waited 3 years. And in 2018, I got the call in January saying, hey, you probably don't remember applying here, but you're at the top of the list. And I was like, oh, I actually don't, but this is great. I was super excited and went through the process of, filling out the paperwork and applying. And I was really, really grateful. And I moved in May of 2018. I remember it was a surreal moment for me, actually having my own place and not sharing a bathroom and being able to cook again. It was a really good feeling to have my own place again. So I then transitioned and worked for PATH around the same time in June of 2018. So PATH, again, stands for People Assisting the Homeless. We are a statewide homeless services agency. We've been around for 34 years. And our mission is to end homelessness for individuals, families, and communities. That's a picture of one of our clients that made it home. And then lastly, I just wanted to share a quick slide about the LA HOP portal. Go to lahop.org and just follow the instructions. You can actually help self-refer somebody that's experiencing homelessness, whether it be a friend or someone that you've cultivated a relationship with on the street. And what they do is once you submitted that referral, it then matches a outreach team member and deploys them out to the area that you have indicated in your referral. So this is one of the ways that that you can help somebody that's unhoused. And that's all that I have. I just wanted to thank everybody for allowing me to share my experience, and thank you for attending, and thank you.